All right. So one of the first things we're going to do is check out all the stuff we're going to break apart. One, I really like these buoys here, and I'd like to use them in other projects. So I'm probably going to cut those out and save those models for later. I also want to get this reel that's on here and break this apart so we can have a net that gets pulled in and we can use this as a fishing boat. It looks like there's a little bit of hole room right here, so I'll look about cutting those out as well so we can open that up and store fish in there maybe. And then also we're gonna break out this throttle that's right here, and there is a steering wheel. Don't mind the other steering wheel that I have there. That was just when I was making my template, but there's a steering wheel here we're gonna break out, and then we're gonna take this screen too. Looks like a good part to break out too. Yes, we could lift the motor if I wanted to get too technical. So when you get in it, it's forward, and then as you drive forward, it puts it down when you start the engine. That's pretty much what we're going to do. Now I have this boat over here, and it contains something called an LOD, level of detail. What we're doing is we're taking a placeable object that was in one of the maps and using it as a mod. Now there's going to be two here. Usually level 1 is going to be less detail, so it's not going to include certain things. So we want to take this LOD2, and I'm just going to duplicate it for right now so I don't mess up my mod. And then with my middle mouse, I'm going to click and drag to the very bottom. So now I have this model exactly where it was. Or come to File, Export Selection. I already have it exported in here, but I'm going to select OBJ as a file type, Photo3. I'm going to hit Save. I'm going to replace it. And there we go. Now it's time to open up Blender. I'm not going to get crazy with materials with this. It's relatively simple. So we're going to come up to the very top up here where it says File, Import. We're going to look for wavefront.obj. Once we come here, we need to locate where exactly that is saved at. Once you found your location, go ahead and select it, and we're going to import it in. I have my little guy for reference here. I'm just going to pull him up and get him out of the way because this is about the size we want the boat. I'm going to close my panel here right now for the Giants exporter. I'm going to select the model using left click, and then from there I'm going to press tab. Tab's going to bring us into edit mode, and this is where we can start grabbing pieces. If you double tap A, hit A once, it'll select everything. Double tap it to deselect everything. And now I want to grab some of these buoys. So I'm going to go to the model portion that I want. I'm going to come up to the top up here. You have a selection choice of 3 different things: vertices, lines, or faces. And we want to go faces. Using the L key, as in Lima, L, I'm going to select everything I want to pull out. This is the tedious part. Really got to make sure that you get in there and get every nook and cranny, because there's probably going to be faces hiding somewhere. Once I'm all done, I like to hold the Z, as in zebra, key, and we're going to go to wireframe really quick and just kind of take a peek and make sure we got all the faces that we wanted to get with this thing. For that, I'm going to hold the Z key again, and it'll bring up this radial menu, and we're just going to go to solid. Now, before I separate this, I want to create a new material for the whole thing. So with this selected, I'm going to press tab to get out of edit mode. I'm going to look over here to the right. You'll see this material button here. It'll bring up this menu right here. We're just going to create a new material. I'm going to name it Photo3 for right now. Now back in Giants Editor, we actually have these textures that make up this whole boat, and we can bring them into Blender so we can see exactly what we're doing, and also when we export, we can just assign everything perfectly. So I'm going to go over to the material editing pad, and I'm going to click these 3 little buttons. These 3 little buttons are going to bring up the file name and its file location. Once we get that, pop up here to the top, and I'm just going to copy this whole file name. Now back in Blender, I'm going to come to the very top and I'm going to select shading. Once you come into shading, you'll see kind of this extremely complex node system here. Now what I like to do is I use a plugin called Node Wrangler. And if you don't know much about that, Google it. It's definitely worth a Google. But you can install that free on Blender. I think it comes stock. You just have to activate it. You go up to Edit, Preferences. Up here in the search box, we'll put Node Wrangler, and it'll be this one right here. You want to activate that, save your preferences. You can always do the auto save preferences too as well right here. After you have everything saved, we can close that. Then come back down here and click on your Principal BSDF, and you're going to hold Control, Shift, and T, and that's going to activate the Node Wrangler. Once again, that is Control, Shift, and T as in Tango. Control, Shift, T. Earlier, that address for those textures we copied, I'm just going to paste them in here. And this will be different for you. If you didn't buy the game on Steam, yours will not be that. After we do that, I'm going to press enter and it'll bring up that folder. I don't remember exactly what boat we're looking for. Boat 3.0 diffused, specular, and normal. Now I can easily just do a search here for boat 3 and see what we get. So I want the diffused texture. So I'm going to hold control and click diffused. I want the normal while holding control, clicking it, and the specular. I'm going to select this button right here and it'll load everything up. And as you can see, we have all of our textures now. We're not done yet though. You need to come down to specular and we're going to drag this IOR level up to where it says roughness. Then come down to emission and we need to change this to a black color. Otherwise, you'll have an emission selected when you do this. After you have that, you are done in shading. We can now go back to layout. We can hold the Z key as in zebra. Now we can go to this material preview panel and we can actually see what we're doing. Now with the model selected, I'm going to press the tab key here and we still have our selection that we made of these buoys. Now with the material applied, every time we export out a part, the boat, anything of it, we will be able to we won't have to sit there and manually reassign all of the textures. So with that selected, I'm going to press the P as in papa, and I'm going to separate by selection. Now I have a nice little buoy, but the issue is if I come up here to my cursor, move, rotate, I'm just going to click on move, and then I'm going to press tab to get out of my edit mode. You can see that our main point of where we move this around at is way down here. We want to reset that origin. Now, a fast way to do this is going to come here, select your edges right here, and we have two edges that are embedded in the model, but we can still get them. We go into wireframe, we can select both of them. We can see it puts it exactly where we want it, that selection point. Shift and S. We will change it to cursor to selected. Now the cursor's right there. We can get out of edit mode. We still have our bad boy selected here, but we need to right click on it now, and we're going to go to set origin to 3D cursor. Now we can control it right here. Next object I want to do is this reel. So we need this reel. Same process. We're going to make sure we're on face select, and then we're going to use the L as in Lima key while in edit mode to select all the faces. Now you can see our orientation. We're still like looking at that buoy right there. So what I recommend you do is there's a period key on your numpad. If you press that, it'll reorient your camera to what you're looking at, and it makes this way easier. You're not fighting looking around inside of Blender. Now that didn't take too long. I have everything selected here. While I have it selected though, I will notice that my selection point, my little circle in the center with the gizmo, is like exactly where I want it to spin at. So this might be beneficial to me right now. Actually, that might not be. Well, maybe. No, it's off a little bit. Never mind. I was going to have you set your origin point right there, but instead we're just going to hit P to separate it. After we have it separated, we're going to click on our vertices, and there's a little vertice point right there. And I am sure there's another vertice point right there. So I'm going to have both of these selected. Instead of that one, I want that more interior one. We can see it's exactly where we want. So using Shift and S again, we will move cursor to selected. We're going to press tab to get out of edit mode. Right click on it, set origin to 3D cursor. I'm going to go back to material mode. Now, if I hit R for rotate, and then I do, I cycle through X, Z, Y, it's whatever axis you're cutting, you'll notice that it spins freely now and there's no wobble to it. That's why we chose the vertices, because that is the very most center of the model. All right. Now, the thing is, I want this bad boy to kind of rotate too. So unfortunately, I need to cut out this thing too. Make sure nothing's selected. I'm going to quickly go through and L it up. Now I'm having difficulty selecting this one right here. That's because I am in vertices select mode. I'm going to come up and press face. Now I can select faces easily. We're going to do that route. I think I got everything. Okay, out of that mode. Now I'm going to hit E to separate, but I want this to be able to rotate on this pipe axis. So now I'm going to come right here and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm going to select the outermost edge of this because that should be a decent focal point for us. With that selected, I'm going to do Shift and S as in Sierra, cursor to selected, press tab to get out of edit mode, right click, press select origin, origin to 3D cursor. My apologies. Okay, we have an issue though, because if we press R to rotate, we cycle through, find where our rotation axis. We notice that when we rotate, it doesn't move the spindle with it now. What we want to do is make this a child of this. So what we're going to do is select the reel first, and then I'm going to select the pipe, and I'm going to press, is it Control and P, I think? Yep. Control and P is going to bring up the parenting object. And for our particular use case, we want to set parent to object and keep transformation. This will keep all your numbers right. After we've done that, I can reselect the pipe only here, and now I should be able to rotate and it moves the whole pipe. And you can see that I'd messed up here. You can see that there's a chunk that I missed during this whole process, but no need to worry. All right, now if you understand that and you don't need to see me do the same thing over and over, hit like on the video if you got something out of it. If you're still confused, let's do a couple more pieces for you. Now, frankly, when I was trying to get the character to sit properly, I absolutely hated that there's no leg room right here. And it looks like there is, but there's not when you put Giant's character in there. So with everything deselected, we're going to go through and select all the faces on this chair. That way I can move it in-game to better suit our need here. I'm having a hard time seeing it, so I'm going to press that period again on the numpad, and it'll recenter my focus. Just looking all around it, making sure that I got every last little one. Even look in my wireframe again and make sure that I got all the little pieces, and I think I did. So with that selected, I'm going to press E to separate by selection. With that separated, I need to make sure that the orientation is set right. So I'm actually going to select on the edge here, little edge select. And I'm going to select on that one edge, and I'm going to select over here on this edge. Can't see because it's hidden behind the model, but I did select those edges. So holding Shift and S, we're going to move cursor to selected. We're going to get out of edit mode now, and we need to set origin. So right clicking, you can set origin to 3D cursor, and now that chair is able to be moved. It's not going to be very pretty underneath it, but you can move it now. These next pieces should go pretty quick. It's just the throttle and the steering wheel. Really like to pull that screen out too, right? Use it in future models. So let's start with the throttle. I am in edit mode with nothing else selected on the boat. I'm going to use the L as in llama, and start selecting faces. Oh, but I have my edge selected up here. So I'm going to switch to my faces and start L'ing it up again, making sure to get every single face. As you notice, it's not doing the complete bar. Okay, I have all the faces selected. I'm going to press P as in Papa to separate by selection. And the same ordeal here. We're going to get out of our edit mode by pressing Tab. And then we're going to select this throttle. Should be in object mode now. And we're going to press Tab to get into edit mode. I'm going to go up and select my edge select again because that seems to be the best with Giants models. Go into wireframe so I can see what it is I'm doing. Select the outermost edge one and then select the other outermost edge one. Using Shift and S, I'm going to move the cursor to selected, and we are going to get out of edit mode now. Even going to get into material edit. I'm going to right click on this model, set origin to 3D cursor, give it a little shaky shake test to see how it does. That's good. Now for simplicity's sake, we can come right up here, and because I have this selected, it's highlighted here. I'm just going to put throttle. If I could freaking spell. I'm going to do the same thing for everything else that I've cut out. So when we pull it into Giants Editor, it's a little bit more easy to understand what's the parts and pieces and stuff like that. So in edit mode, I found a face, but I have my edge select still selected. So I'm going to go up to faces. I'm going to press the period key to reorientate on it so I can just orbit it and grab it all real quick. Using the L key as in Lima, and we're going to select all the faces that we are going to want to animate. Make it actually be a steering wheel. After I have everything selected, I'm going to press P to separate. Now, steering wheels are tricky when they're bent like this. I actually already have a steering wheel made in Giants Editor because you have to manually rotate this. And that gets a little tedious because it has to be perfect. So using all the same methods before, I'm moving my cursor to that spot, but you can see that's not exactly even with it. And I struggled getting my other steering wheel to work just perfect on the barge. And to be frank with you, they look like identical steering wheels. So there's a good chance that I might just use that steering wheel. But for the sake of the tutorial, I have now moved the focal point of the origin. If we want to move it around. Now let's say we were going to use this steering wheel. what you would need to do is press the R key while looking at it from the side, directly at its side. If you press the Alt and move your middle mouse button, click to move around like this, but if you press Alt, it'll put you in orthographic mode, and that's completely flat, so as flat as I can get. Then from here, I'm going to press R. I'm going to find my rotation angle. I think it's no, not Y, it's Z. Nope, it's X. And that could be different for you. And what we need to do is do our very best to line up this line here with the background grid. And what this is going to do, it's going to keep as much wobble out of the rotation of the steering wheel as possible. Because it's still going to have a little bit because you ain't going to get this perfect, but you want to find a line and try to write it per se, right about there. Now what we did is we changed the rotation, so it went to a 49.04004. We need to set that in stone by applying transformations, which is a Control A, and we can come right here and choose scale. Oh, my apologies, rotate. We didn't scale anything. And when we do that, it zeroes out that scale. Now that model, we could import it in, do some magic with some transforms, and get it to rotate properly now. Other items like this don't really matter because we're going to animate it. This is an actual in-game, when Giant says rotate left or right, it needs all these numbers to be 0. Otherwise, it'll reset it to 0. Complicated, I know, but that is done now. Now, for this little Raymarine GPS plotter right here, what I did in edit mode is I selected both the faces, but I'm not going to actually separate these guys this time. I'm going to do a shift and a D for dog. And when you do that, when you move your mouse around, you'll notice that you duplicated the faces and grabbed them. It's still a part of the model. And we actually don't want to move it too far. So when you're dragging like this, just right click and that will put it right back to where it was, but you still have the duplication. So if I go like this, there's not a blank space behind the screen. We can bring it back like this. And with those faces selected, I'm going to press P to separate. After we separate, I'm going to deselect the main model and select that thing. We want to set the origin to its geometry. We don't plan on moving it very much, but with this screen now, we can apply our own texture to it, such as a GPS plotter or whatnot, instead of just being a blank screen. In order to actually apply that, we would probably first want to have the actual image up and going, because when we come up here, I clicked on the UV editing, bring it up into here, we can see that this is a part of this model. We can see the UVs up here in the top left corner. Itty bitty little screen, so that's not going to work. What we want to do is unwrap it. Let's find a texture we can throw in here. The one we're going to use, I have this Raymarine texture that we will use as a base for right now. Now over in this screen, we can't really see much, so I'm going to hold Z and go to material preview, and now we can see a whole lot more right there. We can see that the material is still showing the boat because we unwrapped it. Now it's showing the full boat material. We're going to come over to our materials panel with this screen selected, and we're going to remove the boat texture, add a new one, add a new material. I'm just going to name mine Raymarine, then come up to shading because I want to apply it. We're going to do the same method as before when we were doing Node Wrangler. Click on the principal BSDF, holding Control, Shift, and T as in Tango. Going to bring up this window. Want to locate wherever your texture is that you're going to use. Mine is going to be this guy. It didn't work because it's dumb. So I'm going to just manually drag it in. Sometimes it doesn't work. I just got to be honest with you. Sometimes the way Giant says their stuff, it just doesn't work. So I'm just going to drag it in instead like that. Then come back to UV editing. And we can see now that our screen is up, showing the proper texture. And I want to unwrap it. I'm going to try from view. This is going to be experimental for you. That's a little better. Okay, that's not going to work. So we're going to manually fit it. I just did a basic unwrap. Now over in the UV panel, I'm going to press rotate on. I'm going to rotate this 90 degrees. That's upside down, so I'm going to do it negative 90 degrees. That's selected. I'm going to move it around by pressing G, having the UV selected. I'm going to scale it down quite a bit, about the size that I want to get it. You can come right up here and there's a bunch of like edge select modes, all kinds of different stuff. I think right now we're in vertice mode. I'm going to go like this and select the edge and press G and Y. G to move it around, Y to lock it in the Y axis. Stretch it there. And then same thing with these two edges here. I'm going to pull it out as much as I can. It's going to make things look a little squishy. Not bad. Okay. Ta-da! I figure since I'm here, might as well do the motor here. I'm using L. I'm going to show you how quick this possibly could be. This will be the last little undo that I'm doing here. Using L to very quickly go around and select everything, making sure I get all of it. All of it. I want this motor to move. Okay, I think that is everything but the bottom. Definitely paying close detail to making sure you get everything. Why it's super important to move it when you're done cutting everything out. Okay, I think I got everything cut out. I'm going to press P to separate by selection. I want the focal point to be right here on this bolt because this is right where I'm going to have the motor rotate. So I'm going to use L to face select that bolt right there, and then use Shift and S to move the cursor to selected. And then we're going to go set origin to 3D cursor. If I'm going too fast, I told you I was going to go fast this run. Now that whole thing is not quite ready yet. We need to do the prop next here. Now I got the prop. I'm going to deselect everything. Now, if you get lucky like me right now, and there's nothing close to this other model that you want to select, you can go to wireframe and then press C as in Colton or Count Dracula, and you can, it brings up this little radial thing right here, and you can select it, and using right click it'll go away, but now you have that whole face selected. I'm going to take advantage of, no, I'm not. Press P to separate. We're going to come back in. I'm going to go into material preview so I can look at this. I want the exact focal point to be right there so it spins with no wobble. I move my cursor. Now I'm going to set origin to 3D cursor. I'm going to test by pressing R to rotate and then find my focal point, which is Y. And now I can see that it rotates perfectly. Now the same ordeal that we had with the reel up here, we need to do the exact same thing to this motor, is we need to make this a child of that. So selecting that first, the prop first, then selecting the engine, we're going to do Control and P. We're going to set parent, keep transformation. Now if we select the motor and I do a rotate back and forth, I don't see any model parts moving anywhere. We'll get a little closer. I did mess up right there. Do you see that red piece? That's supposed to be going with the motor. So there's one thing I missed. Okay, with those faces selected now, this should be it. So I'm going to separate them, take that face, and we're going to attach it back to the motor. So selecting the face first, then the motor. That way the motor is the main parent. And should have worked now. We're going to do, okay. So now when we get in, we can have the motor lift up. Perfect. Okay, now exporting is relatively simple. I'm going to cover that really quick. And with everything selected that I want to export, all the parts, pieces, we have our materials assigned. I'm going to come over and I have the older Giants exporter installed because it gives me less problems. You can work with whatever one you want because we're not playing with materials right now. So as is, I have no collisions or anything special to do here. I'm just going to come down here to file location, choose a spot to save it. Okay, it'll come up here. I just saved it as export and I press export select. It'll take a minute, but once you get that done, you'll be able to open it up and we can see in here, add a little bit of light, that the throttle is all cut out. Same thing with our buoy, our hatch. Now I started to build a hatch in there. It didn't come out very good. So what I'm going to do is select the boat, come here, and I'm just going to do double-sided because now it can be more enclosed in there. Now I have my original mod back up and open here, and I am ready to import in the exported boat. See, everything comes in. It's kind of a lot to deal with, but I can actually now, except for the glass, I want to keep this glass. I could actually now delete this LOD and I can come right into here, select all of these guys using shift and click, and then use my middle mouse button to drag. I'm just going to take it to, I'm going to go up here to transform to the very top. It has all my stuff in there. Now the process of actually going through and coding all that would be a longer video. So I'll see you in the future with that one.